All right. So 3, 2, 1. All right. Hey Henry, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, usually the idea was to do it in person, but because we couldn't, and I still really wanted to have this conversation with you, we're having it over Zoom, and hopefully this will fix some of the issues we had in previous podcasts as well.
Let's hope
Uh,
so.
yeah. So, well, I invited you on this podcast, and we talked a lot about having you on this podcast because I love your thoughts and everything that you do relating to space. You know, you have well, you are the I guess like the president of the Aereo Espiga Club at school, which is like which is a rocket club at school. So, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, we basically just built and launched a bunch of model rockets, and now I can say with absolute confidence, I'm really excited. Our next rocket is actually going to have a flight computer on it. We've spent the
Really?
past few weeks coding that. It's gonna like have servos. But basically everything that moves on the rocket is now going to be controlled by the rocket, not by us. So it's going to
That
be
is really cool.
really awesome. I'm really looking forward to it.
All right, you got to send me the link to to watch it because that actually does sound really cool.
Yeah, we'll have to wait till we get back to school because a lot of the parts are 3D printed, but definitely.
How long does it take you to make one of the rockets, especially this one with so much like technology in it?
Uh, but we could probably throw it together in a week.
In a
Um,
week?
yeah, with testing and everything, of course. We'll probably do a static fire before we actually launch it, just to make sure everything works properly. This one, which I have here, I took two of the fins off because they were a little uneven. This one took me about a week. It took us about a month to design and then a week to put together. This one we've been designing for a long time, but we finally finished coding the flight computers. I can say with absolute confidence, it's going to be amazing.
No, dude, I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it. Like, because I've seen your like your progress from like back when you started the club, back when you came to school a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I remember like your rockets back then, and I've seen like the rockets that you've posted on your account and on the YouTube channel. Like if I post this on the YouTube or on the website, I'm gonna link your YouTube channel, of course.
Awesome.
And I've seen how much you've improved, and it's crazy. And I can't wait to see how this one turns out as well.
Me
And
neither. It's gonna be crazy.
it looks really cool, by the way, as well. So I also wanted to say, so well, this club relating to rockets, you made it because you already have a passion for space, right? You already have a
Absolutely.
passion. We've talked about this a lot before. You have a passion, especially not just for space, but um, with SpaceX and Elon Musk, which is a really, I guess, like important thing in space politics at the minute. So can you tell us a little bit about, I guess, your thoughts on everything SpaceX is doing right now?
Absolutely incredible. Like honestly, from their very first grasshopper test, it took them 4 years to become the first company to land an orbital rocket. Like 4 years. Think about that. They started off with Grasshopper, which basically is the SN prototypes of the Falcon 9. It had one Merlin engine on it. It would lift off the ground. It started off like I think with 2 meter hops and then just touching back down. And they basically taught themselves how to land a rocket. It went from 2 meter hops to 200, and it began to like shift to the side, move. They had guidance systems, and then they tried to land it a few times, didn't work out. But then they tried to land it on land, landed it, and then they tried back on the drone ship in the middle of an ocean, and they got it. Like that is in 4 years. That's insane. And then now they're building Starship, which is supposedly supposed to be the rocket that lands. It's more than likely going to land us on the moon in 2024. But unfortunately, we can talk about this a little bit later and go a little bit more in depth. But NASA has recently suspended their $3 billion uh, um, like their $3 billion gift, I guess, to build the next lunar lander, which is supposed to be a variation of Starship. But they suspended it because Blue Origin, Jeff Bezos' company, started protesting against it. Again, we can go more in detail about that later. I definitely have a lot of opinions on that.
Well,
But
we can go into detail about it now. I know Blue Origin, for example. I've seen like their rockets and like I've seen like their Instagram and like their Twitter and stuff like that, and they seem to brag a lot. But I've also seen like your stories as well. Like their rockets are and their feats are almost like minuscule compared to what SpaceX has done.
Yeah, in order to grasp the vast differences between Blue Origin and SpaceX, well, first off, Jeff Bezos does like to brag a little bit too much about his rocket. His New Shepard rocket, which is the only one that they've actually launched, it does not get into orbit. It touches space and comes back down. It's basically a glorified model rocket, basically. Um, it technically was the first landing rocket, but it's just going up and down, so it's not half of as impressive. And just for a sense of scale, the New Shepard booster is the size of the landing leg of a Falcon 9 booster. So not only is the Falcon 9 booster going up almost into orbit, doing a boost back burn to go back, and then landing at subsonic speeds, faster than the speed of sound. But it is also a massive vehicle with 9 engines on it. Like, there's a bit of a power
Bit of
difference
it.
in it. Yeah, and Jeff Bezos does not like to admit that the Falcon 9 is better. Um, but I will give them credit where it's at. They do build really incredible engines. Their BE4 engine is the very first closed expander cycle engine. If you don't know what that is, it's
Yeah, enlighten me. I'm
okay. So basically, when you look at a rocket engine, you see a bunch of pumps and stuff on it.
right.
But um, you're okay. So the basic way a rocket engine works is you have liquid oxygen and fuel. Those two are then pumped into a combustion chamber where they ignite, the gases expand, and that creates an insane amount of thrust, right?
Right.
But on a rocket engine, you see way more than just two pipes going around it, right? You see a whole lot of stuff. It's a little bit hard to identify which two are those two pipes, but the 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 way that the way that rocket engine works and the way that different rocket engines work isn't necessarily the fuel that they use or anything like that. It's how they get that fuel to the
Right.
combustion chamber. So an engine cycle is basically how they turn those pumps, because in order to turn the pumps, you have to bleed off a little bit of that fuel, put it in a pre-burner, and that's what turns the pumps. That's a very simplified version, but their engine, what it does is, let me backtrack a little bit. Um, some of that fuel goes around the nozzle of the rocket. It goes inside of the nozzle. That way, it helps cool the nozzle off a little bit so it doesn't get too hot and explode. You know, pretty efficient. Um,
And
but
and only Blue Origin has done this.
no. Pretty much every rocket ever does
Okay.
this. But then all of that fuel goes right back into the combustion chamber. That's
Right.
normally what happens. Of course, there's variants, but that's the basic idea. What Blue Origin has done is they use hydrogen as fuel. Now, hydrogen has a very, very low boiling temperature. So when they cool that nozzle, it boils the fuel, and so then you're not getting as efficient. So what they do is um, uh, they take that boiled fuel and they use that to turn the turbo pumps, because when it's going from a liquid to a gas, it creates high pressure, so it's enough to turn the turbo pumps, and then you don't have to waste oxygen or whatever else you're using, and it's very efficient. And some benefits of this is that it's easy to throttle, which rocket engines are a nightmare to throttle. For scale, the Falcon 9 Merlin engine can only get as low as 40% throttle capabilities. This one can get around 20. Um,
Wow. Wow.
so
So like, okay, so engine wise, you would say that at least like proportion wise, Blue Origin has done a really good job. It's
they're it,
just like their way
yeah,
of talking about it.
yeah, their engines are very good. They don't like to leak much about their engines, so I guarantee there's a bunch of issues that are unbeknownst to the public, because they do like to only brag about their accomplishments. They don't really give much about their failures, which SpaceX does really well, which is why I like them a little bit more. You
Yeah,
always like,
I see like, or well, you on your story as well. Like I see a lot of times where SpaceX like posts all the times that their rockets blow up. Like they're not
mhm.
afraid to show it. They say, yeah, this is part of the process. And I have to agree with you there. I think it's really admirable because it's something that anybody can see and say, well, okay, yeah, this isn't a company that's just telling us what we want to hear. Like
Exactly.
this is the process, you know?
Mhm. But yeah, yeah, but when Blue Origin and SpaceX go about rockets very differently. SpaceX jumped right into, we're landing rockets, we're making this cheap, let's do it. And then they did it, failed a bunch of times until they eventually got it right. Blue Origin doesn't do anything until they know that they're ready, which has some benefits to it. However, um, as we can see from SpaceX, Blue Origin was actually started 2 years before SpaceX, and they hadn't gotten into orbit yet. So quite a vast difference between these two approaches. But Blue Origin will definitely have less explosions in their time. Um, but whether it's worth it or not, that's up for you to decide. But so with that, NASA not recently, a little bit under a year ago, basically said, okay, we're going to give a $3 billion contract to whoever can design the next lunar lander. SpaceX eventually won that contract with their starship, with their lunar starship. It's a very beautiful rocket, and the renders of it are absolutely amazing. It can hold up to 200 people. It's basically a compact space station. It's amazing. It can hold as many people as a Boeing. Like, it is a big,
Wow.
chunky rocket. Whereas pretty much every other lunar lander that could have won the contract could hold up to three. So
Right. So, okay. So 3 versus like 200 people. Yeah. Pretty big
yeah,
difference.
and then you can like hold that with equipment, fuel, whatever you need to bring down to the surface of the moon.
Just a lot of space.
Exactly, and
Right.
that's something that you really want for a lander, and it's reusable, very reusable. All the other ones, they burn off their parts, they crash into the moon, and then the only the crew is left, um, which,
Mhm.
it works. We know that it works. That's what they did with the Apollo missions, but it's not innovative. Like, again, the Apollo missions were over 50 years ago. Do we really
Yeah.
want to use the same systems as that?
Wouldn't
But
look good.
exactly. Blue Origin um, proposed a similar type of landing system along with a few other companies. But like I said, SpaceX eventually won the contract. But only a few days ago, uh, Blue Origin wasn't too happy about this, because they're never happy about anything, and protested. And eventually NASA took away or they suspended the contract. Basically said, you can't work on the lunar starship until we, sort this whole mess out. And
Right.
hopefully they continue with SpaceX. That's what I would go with. The one thing that has troubled me and has troubled a lot of people about Starship is it doesn't have an abort system. Like, that's kind of a big deal. Every rocket that has ever launched humans has had an abort system.
Like
That's
abort like is can you explain it? Because I think I have like a vague idea, but I'm not so sure. I have a clear idea on it.
Of course, if you look at like rockets like the Saturn V, right, the moon rocket, you see these little towers, like these white towers above the capsule, right? What those have is they have three or four solid rocket motors, and if there's ever an emergency or something, they light those motors, and it pulls them away from whatever is happening on the rocket, whether it be an explosion, engine failure, whatever they need. It'll pull them away so that they can parachute down the capsule. Every rocket has this. The Falcon 9 has it. Of course, it doesn't have an escape tower. The capsule actually has the engines attached to it, which is really cool. But there's a lot of benefits to that too. You don't waste as much weight. And it also means that you can have an abort option anywhere in flight, which is really good. With the launch tower, you don't really get that option. But every rocket that's ever launched a human into space has had an abort system on it, except for Starship.
Right.
Now, that's where a lot of hesitation comes in, because if something catastrophic happens to the rocket,
They're
you
screwed.
lose it. Yeah, they're
Right.
done. No time to react. The space shuttle, I completely forgot about the space shuttle. The space shuttle didn't. It had an abort option, and that was for them to, walk and jump out of it. As we can see from the two times it blew up, that did
Wasn't
not
really
work.
effective.
Yeah, not at all. Which is why NASA upped their standards. So it is. While I'm happy that they chose SpaceX for the contract, I am a little surprised. But Elon Musk gave a speech about this, about why Starship won't have an abort uh, uh, option on it, and he basically said a problem that would cause an abort is with the rocket, right?
Right.
So in order to solve a rocket problem, you're adding more rockets. So you're just adding more room for failure. So if you take the time and dedication that takes to engineer an abort system. What if you just dove more of that into more testing and more reliability between the rest of the rocket?
I
That
see.
was basically his whole thing. It's still a little bit questionable, but it makes a
Yeah.
little bit more sense.
Yeah. I don't know if I agree with that completely, but I see where he's
Yeah,
coming from.
yeah.
Um,
But they have shown pretty with their Starship test vehicles. It's shown that it's a little bit more reliable than we thought. The idea is not as crazy as we once thought, but it's still a little hesitant to walk into. On the
um,
moon, it is a little bit easier to land. I will say that, but on Mars, I think an abort option would be kind of good.
Actually, like speaking about the contract and all of these competitors, because I really don't know much, like except for Blue Origin and SpaceX. Would you consider like any other third company to be a good competitor to these two giants? Is there any company um, that is also, I guess, like also a good, yeah, a good competitor to these?
Let me just Google it just so I make sure I know what all could have won or who all could have won. Um, Blue Origin, Dynamics, and SpaceX. Those were the three finalists. Dynamics, I haven't heard much about. I do know that they built the the ascent descent for the ULA. What was it? I'm pretty sure it was the Vulcan launch. I don't know. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that was it. So they do have a little bit of experience in the field, but it was really them three. So I don't think Dynamics stood a chance, to be completely honest. I mean, it was a little bit more familiar with NASA, but it probably wouldn't be worth it.
Okay, so wait, so oh, that's weird. I've never heard of Dynamics.
Yeah,
I'll
neither had
yeah,
I.
yeah. I think that's also, I guess, part of the problem that that since it's still such a new industry, right? Like the space industry, it's such a new um like privatized industry. Or like it's the first time that we're seeing privates like join in on this. We're only seeing a couple, and even then, it's very hard because of the regulations that there are. It's also hard for other small competitors to compete against these giants. And I think yeah, it doesn't surprise me that like URI had never heard of I guess like the third company because I don't think there's much room for competition against these guys, you know?
Right. And not to mention the cost. Like they're giving $3 billion out. SpaceX probably only needs about 2 million. Um, their Starship rocket they expect to cost the same as an airliner and have the same
Wow.
refurbishment times. That's what they
Wow.
want. The same turnaround time as an airliner with the same cost. They expect the Starship rocket to cost less than the Falcon 9. That's
Wow.
kind of crazy.
But on okay, so for the moon, that's awesome. For Mars, that would be um like actually okay, so for Mars, you have like a 3 week window, right? Like from when Earth is I guess closest to Mars, or I don't know how long the window is, but I think you have like a window where Earth is closest to Mars, and then apart from that, they're really far away for around the year, I
Mhm.
believe.
There's a few ways around that problem. Like overall, it really just depends. Yeah, there is a 3 week window when Mars is closest to Earth, but those happen. It's longer than a year before that happens. I'm not too sure
Oh,
the
okay.
full dates. So, but they expect very regular launches to Mars, and you can launch regular to Mars. Just some will take longer than others. Some will take 7 months. Some will take 9. Um, but it really just depends on the size of your payload and all sorts of stuff. But one thing that you can do to get around this problem is use the moon as a slingshot. If you go really close to the moon's gravity will slingshot outside of Earth, and you don't have to waste as much propellant, and you can use that to get to the moon or get to Mars a little bit quicker.
That's smart.
Um, yeah.
And and I think also I was just thinking, so I think like so the refurbishment, so that's the time from once after it lands, like how quickly it can go back out, right? So
Exactly. And SpaceX has taken an insane tactic. As you know, with their Falcon 9, they launch it, deploys the second stage, turns around, comes back, and lands, right?
right.
That was the original plan for Starship. Launch it, The Super Heavy is what the booster is called, and the second stage is just called Starship. Starship flies off, Super Heavy comes back and lands. They've changed that plan. And at first, it sounds like another crazy Elon idea, but it actually makes a lot of sense. So I'm going to tell you the new plan: launch it, deploy Starship, come back, and they catch it midair
Well,
with
how
a
did they catch it?
crane.
Is that the actual plan right now?
And that's the plan. That's what
Wow.
they're gonna. They plan on. I think they're gonna do a full test of an orbital Starship and retrieving the booster in July, I believe. Which is kind of insane. That's really close.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But the reason why they're doing this, like at first, like I said, that sounds crazy. Like, why would they do that? They have more experience with landing it. Why would they swap to catching it?
Yeah.
And first, we have to look at the overall goal of Starship. Not only are they wanting to get it to Mars and beyond, but they also want to use it for Earth to Earth travel. To replace, they can go anywhere in the world in under an hour. That's pretty
Wow.
crazy. And you'll only experience G-forces about the same as a roller coaster, so it's not too crazy. It will limit, pregnant women, the elderly, or
Of
people with
course.
heart conditions, but still, that's only a pretty small percentage of the population that
Right.
fly.
That's a like I mean, especially like considering like how early like stage wise we are on trips, like
Mhm.
that's a pretty good number, like, or I guess like percentage of people that cannot go, especially this is just another problem that will be solved in the future, you know?
Exactly. And but so turnaround time is a huge aspect of this, because if they want to launch humans Earth to Earth as quickly as airliners, they're going to have the booster be as refurbishable as airliners. Now, there's two things about catching it that are very handy. They want to catch it with a crane on the launch pad. So they catch it and then they can just lower it right onto the launch pad, fuel it up, and launch it again. So that cuts down a lot of stuff. The second thing is the landing legs. On the Falcon 9, it's pretty refurbishable. It's broken some records for the fastest rocket to fly again. It's also the only rocket to fly again. It's pretty easy to break those records, but the longest time of its turnaround is the landing legs, because they have to cushion an insane amount of force when holding up a giant, 12
Right.
story rocket. Um, so that they have to be taken apart individually and inspected. With Starship, it's a bigger rocket, so you can imagine that landing legs are going to have to be bigger, therefore take longer to inspect. So why not just remove them from the equation altogether? And if you can't land the rocket, you have to catch it. So
And and so this catching mechanism that they're going to use for Starship, it's it's only going to be used in I guess in yeah, on Earth, right? Because they don't have the crane or anything on the moon or Mars yet.
yeah, super heavy is not going to go to the moon or Mars. Super heavy can't. The basically super heavy launches the first Starship, which will have people, the payload, whatever you want to get to wherever you're going. Super heavy come down, they catch it, lower it, refuel, and put another Starship right on that. And this one is full of fuel. It launches that one. The two Starships in space connect, refuels the first Starship, then it comes back down, lands, and then the payload zooms off to wherever you want to go.
Wow. No, that is really cool. I think, especially like, um, it's crazy to think about how in the past, like you said before, in 50 years, there really has not been that much innovation in the space sector, you know,
Until now.
until now, and we're seeing it, I think, really fast again because it's it's also kind of like um the race, you know, it's like the race instead of the race to the moon, now it's, or rather the race between the Soviet Union and the United States. Now it's the race between private companies, and I think that's also going to be really interesting to see because private companies, I guess, unlike the Soviet Union and the United States, they can just keep coming, right? If like one goes, if one goes broke, then there's another one that comes up, and they aren't really fueled by the fear of I guess destruction. They're kind of just fueled by wanting to be the best.
That's where the FAA comes in, because the FAA is a little bit annoying with that. Granted, they should be, but yeah.
But
Wait,
what's the FAA?
They basically just regulate everything that flies,
Okay.
like airplanes, rockets. The FAA hates rockets. Whenever there's a launch, that means that they have to have a flight.
Clear all the airspace, right?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
FTR, I believe. TFR, TFR. It's a temporary flight restriction. Basically means no planes can fly from the ground to space in this area for this amount of time. And that's really annoying. They don't like doing that, which is why they're not a big fan of the Starship test vehicles, because they're test vehicles, so you don't have a set target date. It's just whenever we can launch it, we will. So they have to have a window. It's a whole thing. But and another thing is I have an opinion that not many people who don't spend as much time researching this as I do, um, might find a little bit interesting, but it kind of makes sense. I think that's why I think it. But um, I think it's about time NASA stops building rockets. Um, you see, the private sector has built amazing rockets. Falcon 9, Rocket Lab's rockets are absolutely mind blowing. But NASA can build satellites, they can build payloads. Like what you're trying to get to space is way more important than the rocket itself, to a level.
Right.
So, and NASA ever since the Challenger and the Columbia disaster of the space shuttles, they have upped their safety standards so high. So high, in fact, that the space shuttle actually used some components from the Apollo missions. And that's like a good 20 years in between that. No
Right.
improvement. So, but now that these private companies are showing up, they start from a blank slate. They don't have to adhere to these safety standards, which is allowing them to innovate way quicker than NASA is.
And
But
they have that need for competition that NASA only had during the uh, during the space race, because they had a
100%,
competitor, which was the Soviet Union.
110%. Not only that, but this will actually help NASA out and it will help the private companies out. It's a win-win. The private companies, how do you think that they're funded?
I'm
How do
I'm,
you think a rocket makes money?
I'm guessing by investors.
Not, yeah, sure, but rockets make money by what they're putting into orbit. So if SpaceX makes some money from the Space Force, the United States Space Force, they say, "Hey, we have this satellite. Can you put it to orbit for us?" And NASA says, "Sure."
Right.
SpaceX says,
Okay.
"Sure."
Okay. Right. So it's
That'll be
like,
$10 million.
okay.
Um, and that's basically how it happens. But if NASA does this, they don't have to waste so much money on building their own rockets or paying some other government organization to launch it for them. They can just pay SpaceX. SpaceX gets their money. NASA gets their satellite. NASA doesn't have to spend a huge amount of money, which their budget is dropping by the year. So it's a win-win for everyone. It seems like the best solution, but unfortunately, let me just Google this so I get his name right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Go for it.
um, new NASA administrator was sworn in only a few hours ago.
A few hours ago.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
His name is Bill Nelson. I don't know if you've heard of him.
I have not. No.
He was a former senator. He was a former Democrat senator. I'm not a fan of the guy.
What has he done?
Well, I don't like I don't like his ideas with NASA. He's sworn in as administrator. He makes the huge decisions for NASA. I don't like NASA's Artemis plans. They're building a new rocket called the Space Launch System. It's a beautiful rocket. I have talked to people who have worked on it. One of them helped me for my mission project. But
You were telling me about this guy who's a new head of NASA, right?
Bill Nelson, yeah. So basically, he wants to spend a lot of money on the SLS, which I'm not too big of a fan of because they've spent a lot of money on the SLS and they are planning to have their first flight in November. Now, there's a lot of benefits to the SLS. It's traditional, it's a little bit safer, but that's also the reason why I don't like it. Not because it's safer, of course, but because it's more traditional. It basically, you have two solid rocket boosters, the same ones that flew on the space shuttle, a little bit bigger, but space shuttle had a major failure because of one of these side boosters. Of course, they fixed the problem. They know what happened. That should not happen again. But you can't help but say, hey, you're doing the exact same thing as before, just a slightly different. And when all of these guys are building these mega rockets that can go to Mars and cost as much as an airplane, like you can't help but question the decision making there. But they're going to go on with it. I think it's a little bit too late to turn back now. They're starting to assemble the first vehicle, which is supposed to have its first flight in November. It'll probably get pushed back, but that's what we know of so far. And yeah, but that's my thoughts on Bill Nelson. He's very traditional. He doesn't want to make a lot of innovations. He does not like SpaceX. When SpaceX launched their Falcon Heavy, he called the administrator of NASA at the time. He said, "You better keep your boy in check," referring to SpaceX.
Right.
So I'm worried that he'll disband this contract to SpaceX.
Hopefully he doesn't.
Hopefully.
But yeah, I think, well, yeah, I'm not going to give, like, I guess, much of my my views on a on economics and like that side of politics, the parties and all that.
Right.
But I am going to say that, yeah, this seems like a really bad move, especially like when we were talking, like, this is, I think that I would even call this the second coming of innovation in the space sector, right?
You
The
got to
second.
feed it. You can't take it. You can't stop it. You have to
Exactly.
feed it.
And I think, like, halting it right now is just going to disincentivize a lot of people from wanting to keep going with, from a lot of people are going to say, oh, okay, what's the point if I can't even actually go through with it? So I
Exactly.
think, yeah, I think what you're saying is definitely very true. And talking about Mars, so you're talking about, like, I guess these spaceships that can get to Mars. We were talking earlier about how laws and colonies would work in Mars, right?
Mhm.
And politics in Mars. And I guess, like, one of the things I read online that I also talked to you about was that Elon Musk said that at least his Mars colonies, would not follow any Earth laws.
Mhm.
So, like, if you know about that, I would love to hear about that.
Yeah, he said that the last thing he wants is for the inhabitants to follow Lord of the Flies style catastrophe. Um, that would be a worst case scenario. So first off, we have to think about this a little bit more carefully than just what laws will they follow, because it's not like they found a new continent on Earth. This is another planet. This is a different atmosphere. It's somewhere no man has ever set foot before. So when you go there, it's dangerous. It's gritty. It's going to be hard work. The first people, something Jeff Bezos said that I 110% agree with is, or like 90% agree with, but that's fine. If you want to go to Mars, go spend a week on Mount Everest. Mars is like that times 10.
Right.
Like it's a nightmare and you can't breathe on it. So there goes that option, I guess. But Mars is going to be difficult. The people who land there are going to have to work together. They have to, or they all die. So
Right.
I think the main difference between this and every other time humans have crossed the ocean or any other time we have pioneered a new land is that everyone is reliant on each other. There's not people that were there before. For example, when Columbus reached the New World, there were people there to help them out.
Right.
What came from that is another story. But
Genocide.
let's ignore that. But we can pioneer a new way into a new world that is impossible for us to survive on our own. If they don't work together, they will die. So there's no room for selfishness. There's no room for laws to take place immediately.
and I think it's also really important. Oh, boy, I just remembered I have the space shuttle thing right here.
Cool.
Well, I'll talk about that in a minute, but I think it's really important to note as well, like what you were saying is very true, and a lot of people I know because I was thinking about it when you started talking, and then I thought a little bit more. It was like isn't this similar to how we've gone to the moon and stuff? But the truth is, it isn't at all, because when we
Absolutely
went to the
not.
moon, we just went there. They didn't even sleep there, you know. They just went
Mhm.
there, touched down, and left. Like, this is an actual colony that we're setting up there. Like, these are people that are going to spend the rest of their lives there, you know. And I think and it's like you said, it's like living on Mount Everest, but not just for a week, for their whole lives, and they have to work together. If there's nobody out there to help them except themselves. Obviously, they have a base out here in Earth, on Earth, but there's only so much like we would be able to do from here. So I think, um, yeah, I'm really interested to see how laws work, how society grows up there, because it's going to be the first time that a society is completely based and created on this idea of mutual survival, you know?
Mhm. And here's where it gets even crazier. Brace yourself. Um, well, for one, they aren't going to stay there their whole life. The first
Okay.
the first people to land on Mars will stay there for around 2.5 years, and then they'll fly back. Um, because there's methane on Mars, and methane is what they use for a fuel on Starship. So they'll have a mining system where they use this process where basically they get it down to its liquid temperature, and then they get rid of everything else. So now you just have pure liquid methane. Um, uh, so yeah, and then
But will they have like people come? I think from what I understand, they'll have people coming in and out, right?
mhm. The
Okay.
first crew, I think, will be of 30 people, I'm pretty sure. And then they'll keep saying crews of 30 people, and they'll gradually increase the number. And then when Mars is at its closest approach to Earth in that 3 week window that you're talking about, they're going to send a lot of people. By 2050, here's where it gets crazy. By 2050, not only do we expect there to be over 1,000 people living on Mars, but the first Martian baby will have already been born.
That is going to be crazy. Wait, how would because I saw a movie on this, and it was like a really stupid like rom-com movie, but it was
Gross.
a movie. I forgot the name. It's I forgot the name. I'll send it to you later, or I'll put it up here somewhere on the screen. But I remember it was this story about like this these astronauts who go on a mission, and the woman is like one of the women who's an astronaut is pregnant, and nobody knows until she's on like already on the trip, and then she has to give birth on Mars, or I think like on the shuttle or something. I think on Mars, and there's already a Martian colony and stuff like that. But the thing is, like, because this baby was conceived, or not conceived, but he was like gestated throughout space and then finally birthed on Mars, his bone density and his structure was completely different, right?
Mhm.
So how do you think we could see that? Because even though it's a fictional and it's a stupid movie,
Right.
it is based on reality, which is that, you know, atmosphere changes and gravitational differences. We can see different forms of how humans are created. So how do you think that would change based on I guess the first baby on Mars?
Well, first off, if you fly in a rocket while pregnant, your baby's gonna die. The amount of G forces will crush it. So there's that. But, um,
Just
but
a reminder
hypothetically,
to
yeah,
not have a baby on board.
yeah. Disclaimer: those baby on board bumper stickers that you see on cars, put those on rockets as well. Just or no, no baby
No
on
baby
board.
on board.
No babies, plural. We don't. Yeah, just no. um, yeah, that would be gruesome. But when the first Martian baby is born, yes, their body will definitely not be adjusted to Earth's gravity, and when they eventually come back, which they better, um, they back, I guess, but they will have to have some sort of exoskeleton to help them stand, just because the atmospheric pressure is insane. Even like to us, I can't remember the exact number, but I know it's a really high number of pounds that you are lifting right now. You just don't know it because I guess you're used to it, or your body's already naturally fighting against it from birth.
And do you think that would do you think it's something that you could get used to? So if you're so if this kid was born on Mars and came back, um Do you think it's something you could get used to, or something, or he would always have to, or she would always have to wear the exoskeleton thing?
Um, I don't know. I think that dives in more into a little bit of biology, um, or like, or like some form of medical field. But I can imagine you get used to it. I mean, we get used to space, and then they get used to Earth right after that.
That's
So,
true.
and you know, space's gravity is a little bit less than Mars because there's none. But um, I can imagine eventually they'll get used to it.
Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, I think it is very interesting um, to think about how Earth uh, might change, or rather, the way we look at Earth, because right now it's like everything we know, and then it's
That's
not just that.
shattered for them.
Yeah, it's not just that we can like travel to other planets, but we're gonna have people from other planets, people who look different than us in other planets.
People are we're gonna have to start adding planet birth to passports.
That's gonna be a very cool thing to watch.
It's all gonna happen in our lifetime. Like probably someone that a high schooler right now somewhere on Earth. They could be watching this. They could have no idea that we exist. They could be watching Mark Rober right now. They could be passing an exam, failing an exam. The person who was going to, the first person to walk on Mars is alive right now among us. That's insane to think about.
Not just that, probably also the like according to your estimates and stuff, could also be the first person to have a child on Mars.
That's that's insane. Dude, yeah,
It's
man.
crazy. It's crazy to think um, that, well, like not so long ago, or I guess not so long ago in the span of how long the Earth and civilization has been around, or humans have been around. Not so long ago, we were, I guess, like barely even getting across the ocean. And now, I mean, the first car was invented what, under 200 years ago, like under 150 years ago. And now we're shooting up into the first airplane was no, yeah, the first car I believe around 200 years ago, but the first plane was
Was in
created
1903.
right. So it's a little bit over 100 and 118 years ago, and now we're actually talking about going to another planet in our solar system.
66 years after the first plane we landed on the moon.
That's
Dude,
crazy.
someone could have been born on the day that they um, uh, flew the first plane and witnessed the moon landing. That's,
Yeah,
dude, that's insane to think about.
dude. Wait. Okay. So let's see. Somebody. Well, when was the Civil War? 1860, right?
I don't know history.
Well, I mean, let me look this up because
My,
I'm
my,
pretty
my history,
1866, right?
yeah, my
1860.
history is based on space facts.
No, because I'm saying so. I looked up Civil War, and the first thing that comes up is Marvel Civil War, but
Of course it is.
but okay. So look at this. April 9th, 1865. That's when the Civil War was over, right? So theoretically, if you had somebody who lived up to 104 years old, which we have people right now that are nearly 120 years old, right? You could have had somebody that was born at the very end of the Civil War and
Mhm.
witnessed us landing on the moon.
Right.
That's
That's
crazy, dude. And I think it's crazy to see how much we've evolved technologically in so little time. And then we were talking about this earlier, how much we've stagnated. We've gotten very lost, right? We've
mhm.
gotten very lost, and we have stopped at least advancing in if anything, I'd say we've advanced a lot in military, but in terms of things I would say that we actually need, things like space or technology that improves our day-to-day lives like medically and things like that, we've kind of gotten a little bit lost, right?
Mhm.
Especially space. And
Mm,
now we're seeing that again. And
it's
it's really crazy that we can actually live through that.
100%. Yeah. The first rocket to reach space or take photos in space, at least. Pretty sure it was a V2 rocket developed by Werner von Braun. by the Nazis with the goal of wiping out England. Disclaimer: Werner von Braun was a brilliant scientist. That was not his end goal, of course, but they threatened to kill him if he didn't. So, gotta do what you gotta do. But
The Nazis had really good scientists
very
and
good. And then America kidnapped them.
kidnapped them. Well, I mean, I'm all for kidnapping Nazis, but the thing is, I think the problem is not that they, or rather, no, I think the problem, well, so because of like the space race, you know, the Soviets and the Americans both really needed rocket scientists, and the place with the best rocket scientists was Nazi Germany. So of course they kidnapped them and they started but giving them, I guess, work to do. But I guess like the problem that a lot of people have with this, um, because I think it's also really important to remember like this idea, I guess, like the idea that we have now that the Nazis are horrible, like all the information that we know right now, people didn't know what to start, right? So like people right after the war ended, the average citizen didn't know of all the atrocities that occurred in the Holocaust. But I think even then, I don't think that serves as an excuse for the American government to kind of just ignore or pardon all of their crimes. And they gave them like American passports and things like that, as long as they would simply help them put the US on the moon before Russia. And I think it's like I don't know, man, it doesn't sit right with me.
Well, I gotta defend Werner von Braun because like he's my boy, he's my homie.
I don't know anything about them. I'm just saying, like, like the other
Yeah,
ones.
yeah. He made a willing choice to go to the United States. He wanted to go to the United States, but then when Hitler found out that he was smart, he said, "Okay, build a rocket or we shoot you." And he's just like, "Oh." And basically, he was. I'm pretty sure. Again, not 100%. I'm pretty sure he was going to let them kill him because he didn't want to do that. He wanted to use his knowledge to advance humanity. But then he realized, if they give me the resources and the tools that I need, I can advance my knowledge in space. And that's what he did.
Mhm.
And eventually, he designed the Saturn V rocket that did bring us to the moon.
That's
So
crazy.
props to him for not killing himself.
No, I think that's also, I like I said, I don't know much about that guy. And from what you told me, it seems a little bit more like an Albert Einstein situation, kind of that one thing, Albert Einstein left Nazi Germany. I guess he was actually successful, unlike this guy. But we also like one of the most important Nazi rocket scientists, or I don't know who he, I'm pretty sure he was a rocket scientist that was brought over in Operation Paperclip, was this horrible guy, like one of Hitler's top guys who had like slaves and stuff like that, like Jewish slaves during this time, and he forced them to work and whatnot. And I'm all for the advancement of space, right? But
Right.
I think it's interesting to see that we have advanced. Or we are starting to advance nearly as much as we did back then, without having to resort to that, I guess, cruelty, or I guess like pardoning horrible people. Like now we do it because these companies have an obligation to their shareholders, or to make money, or to, I guess, be the better product, instead of having to beat this other country before the other ones get. So I think it's cool that we've advanced past that.
It's wonderful. Yeah. Yeah. Uh, yeah. Von Braun actually did a lot to help the pretty sure it was the Allies that the United
Yep.
States was on. The Allies. He burned when he knew that Hitler was going to like take all the documents and stuff. He actually burned a lot of the designs that they couldn't get all of them. Just kind of heroic,
Yeah, no,
considering he was a little nerdy guy about to get shot.
no, no, he sounds cool. I don't know anything about him, again, like except for what he
Yeah.
told me, but he does sound like a good guy.
Mm.
Um, and I think a lot of I think, I don't know. I think a lot of what space, or learning about space, is about, is also in a way about the betterment of humanity.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the more we know about space, the more chances we have to make humanity better.
People don't quite realize how much space impacts your daily life. They really don't understand. Wi-Fi, internet, those are just like a few basic things. GPS. all of that is just a very
Light, light.
right. Yeah, no. And but like us exploring space,
Yeah,
people always say like, why go to Mars? Like, what's the point? Well, there's a lot of benefits to it. The main one being, I'd say, like on a bigger scale, this is the main one. It's like having a backup drive for your computer. The chances of something catastrophic happening on Earth are way higher than on Mars. So if we become interplanetary, say an asteroid hits Earth, wipes everyone out, we have a backup, um, which is as catastrophic as that would be. It's
it's
at
good
least
to
a
have
little,
a backup.
100%, yeah. And also, Elon Musk said this, and I 100% agree with it. I would find it really depressing if humanity does not thrive among the stars. Like that, just waking up in the morning, looking up at the night sky, seeing all those beautiful dots. Who knows how far away they are? Not being up there, or like having an effect of us being up there, depresses me. Like that is why I want to do this. It's something I want to do for the rest of my life. If I don't make an impact that gets us further than Mars, I wasted my life. That's how it feels like.
I think, look, I know you're not, or I know like you are a very religious person, and you know I'm not that much of a religious person, but I still hold a very strong belief that we are the smartest species on Earth, right? At least like that we
100, yeah,
that we
definitely.
know of. We don't know, at least that we know of so far in our solar system, because there could be things on there we don't know completely, but that we know of so far, we are the smartest species on our planet. And I think that gives us a moral obligation to venture outside of our planet and do, I guess, do what everything else in our planet couldn't, and find new things and discover. We are the most curious, or we are one of the most curious species on Earth for a reason.
Other than
And
cats, but they die every time.
exactly, we're we're one of the most curious, but also one of the most resilient. And I think that gives us the tools to really be able to I guess explore more than anybody else ever has before, and meet these other, I guess, top dog species around the universe.
Yeah, it's such wasted potential if we don't.
Definitely. No, I definitely agree. I think there's so many, I mean, there's so many things that seemed fictional 100 years ago and now are true, or even 20 years ago. And
Exactly.
I think who knows? We're going to Mars soon, in under a century, right? Like under half or under 50 years. So who knows if in 100 or 200 300 years, who knows how many planets we'll have gone to. Maybe we'll have escaped our solar system. Maybe we'll have, I don't know, built a Dyson sphere. We we don't know where we will be, but we know that as long as I guess as long as we remain curious, we're going to keep exploring. And I think that's, I don't know, I think I think that's amazing, because even if you and I are long gone by the time we find another species, at least it'll be it'll still be, I guess, important. You know what I mean? Like it'll be uh I don't know how to describe it, but you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, as long as it does happen, that's what matters.
Hmm.
And if if we don't find another species, cool. If we do, also cool. Um, yeah, that's what the Perseverance rover on Mars landed about a month ago. Um, that's what it's trying to do. It's trying to find signs of life, or signs that there was life on Mars. And if there is, it's going to give everyone a real confidence boost about terraforming it.
Yeah. And I I heard, okay, there's a really cool, I know you're more on like the exploration side of space, and not really I know you, like, you don't focus as much, I guess, on the life side of space, but I
They
have
kind
to
of go hand
recommend,
in hand.
okay, okay, then even more so, I have to recommend you this documentary on Netflix. It's called Aliens, or Alien Life, I believe.
I will put that in my notes.
Yeah, it's only 4 episodes. Each episode is like around an hour, and
Mhm.
it talks about like planets that like exist out in space, or like similar to planets that exist out in space. And
Mhm.
it talks about how life it came to existence here, and how would exist and look like in these places. Like there's this one planet that half of it is always facing the sun and half of it is always facing away. So half is freezing, half is like really hot. And a planet like this does exist. And it talks about how life could exist there. And it's crazy. And in that documentary, I believe in the last episode, they say we have only looked at like 4,000 planets for life. Like we have only looked at 4,000, and there are, I believe, a billion or a trillion or a billion trillion planets out in space. And for people to say that there is no life out in space apart from us is crazy. It's really crazy.
I'm trying to find this picture. It's all right. Can I share my screen?
Yeah, go for it, go for it.
You've disabled screen sharing. Can you make me co-host?
Oh, let me let me add that real quick. More allow. How do I?
If you go to participants, there should be an option to make me co-host.
Allow participant. Oh, it doesn't. Huh.
Oh, you could allow me to share screen. That works too.
No, it doesn't. Let's see. Can I make you a co-host maybe? Okay, well, I'm gonna end up making you the actual host, but
Okay. Oh, that should work. Yeah, right here is the most important picture ever taken. It's from the Voyager spacecraft, the farthest man-made craft from Earth. It is traveling at insane speeds, and will eventually break out of our solar system. But this is a photo it took. Eventually, they turned it back around and it took this photo. This is space, and this tiny pale blue dot is Earth. I don't remember the exact words. Let me pause my share so you can just look at that.
yeah.
There's a Voyager 1 Earth picture quote. It was a very good quote. It's from Carl Sagan. He says, "Look again at that dot. That's here. That's home. That's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you've ever heard of, every human being who ever was, lived out their lives, the aggregate of our joy and suffering, thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines, every hunter and voyager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilization, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every young mother and father, hopeful child, inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our beliefs lived out their lives on a mote of dust suspended in a sunbeam." That puts things into perspective.
That is a really good quote.
And that kind of goes along with that we have to explore thing.
Yeah.
Significance is only what you make of it. Like some people say, why go explore the cosmos? Why go to Mars? Why do this? Why do that? Because if not, we're forever on that tiny dot. I don't like that.
Think about it like this. How would you feel if you were born on your bed, like you were just born on your bed,
Never got out.
right? You lived your whole life on your bed, and you died on your bed. And then or what if there were two people on that bed, and you wanted to say, "Hey, I want to go explore," and then the other person said,
Nah.
Why? What is there? What is it out? Like you have food here. Like you can get rest.
You can see the window. You can see everything out there.
Exactly. Like why would you want to? And I mean, to most people, like that analogy would be like, I mean, of course you're gonna go outside, right? You want to see grass, animals, the sky, the stars. Well, we should want to see the stars too. We should want to explore, get out of, I guess, humanity's bed or humanity's blank room, and there's so much for us to see. There's so much, and it's incredible that there are, I guess, that not every single human agrees on this, because it seems like it should be something that we should all agree to want to find more things out in space.
102%. That was the best analogy I've ever heard for this. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it gets deep and philosophical from there, like the meaning of life and all of that. Like, what's the point of life if you're not going to try to venture out? Um, but I feel like that's for a separate conversation. Yeah, but rolling back to where we are now, everything that's happening, we are about to start the next great space race. I'm gonna try my best to ride it, just because it's too good of an opportunity to miss. We are like I saw a quote on TikTok and it was like, "This is lame. We're too early to explore the universe, but we're too late to like explore anything else. Like we've explored all of Earth, but we're too early to explore everything else." I say no. We're gonna explore something else in our lifetime. I won't let it happen otherwise.
We're at the dawn. Yeah, like I mean, too late to explore the universe. I mean, sure, maybe in 100,000 years you'll be able to zoom past like Han Solo and things like that. But I mean, is it really that important when you can do it on the daily basis, or is it not more important when you're doing it for the first time? You know?
Exactly. Like if everyone had that approach, we would never explore the universe. Just because everyone would be like, we're too early. Oh well,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
let the next generation figure it out.
I
Like no,
definitely agree with that. Yeah.
like even if what you're doing isn't exploring the universe, it's a stepping stone for it. Like you have to get there before you can get here. So just get there for everyone else, please. We'll make everything easier.
I know. I absolutely agree. I think it, it's kind of like that that like idea of procrastination, right? Which I suffer from a lot. But it's like,
100%. Yeah.
especially during online school, it's like,
Mm.
okay,
Easiest thing to do.
yeah, it's like, okay, I know I have like 4 assignments due tomorrow, but I
I
mean,
kind of watch this YouTube video. Like,
yeah, I have time after. Like, I mean,
I could
it's
stay up till 3.
yeah, it's too early right now. Like, I can do it. I can probably do it in 5 minutes, and I can do it in like I can do it in an hour. Like an hour from now, I'll take 5 minutes, whatever. 5 hours later, it's too late, and you have to go to bed, and you realize it wasn't 5 minutes, you know? And
Yeah.
right now, I think what Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and hopefully more competitors in the future are doing is ensuring that we we do get that stage of exploring the universe instead of just staying in the I guess it'll happen later, like you said.
Yeah. Elon's definitely earned himself in a history book. That's for sure. And I don't believe that he's done it yet. Like someone once said like, they said Elon Musk is a capitalist scum who only cares about himself. And my first thought was, if Elon Musk only cared about himself, he wouldn't have built electric cars and he wouldn't have gone into aerospace. Like someone who only cares about themselves and their wallet would not do those things. Like electric cars, when Tesla started, Tesla went bankrupt twice. SpaceX once. They happened at the same time. I read it in his biography. It was amazing. And he pulled some really smart business moves to keep them both stable. But if he only cared about himself, he wouldn't have tried to save them both. He wouldn't have gone to electric cars. He would have gone to gas cars. And he would not have gotten to space exploration because before SpaceX, how many private companies can you name that have launched rockets? None.
Yeah, none. I
SpaceX is the
think
very first private company to launch something into orbit.
I think so. And I think, well, like because of my views on economics and things like that, I don't know if I completely agree with you. I think there is a sort of for every business owner, I do believe that there is some sense of selfishness or greed, as we may call it. But I think a lot of people see that as a bad thing, and
It's not always a bad thing.
yeah, I beg to differ.
Too
I
little
think
or too much is a bad thing.
exactly. I think, well, I mean, while I don't agree with everything Bezos is doing right now, I don't agree with everything. I also don't agree with the way, I guess, the market is set up right now and how it leads to how things are done.
Mhm.
But that being said, I do respect a lot of what Musk has done, again, with electric cars, and I respect what he's doing with right now with the space industry, and well, with Neuralink as well. Like I respect a lot of what he's doing, right? And I think it's
Oh, excuse me.
Neuralink. I think a lot of what he's doing is great. And while I do think, of course, like any business owner, it is fueled by greed, but I think he's smart enough to understand that the best way I guess maximize his greed is by providing something that the people want or have an interest in, you know? So he knows it's good for humanity, so more of humanity will want it. And I think, well, I mean, I think that that's and I think that that's why Elon Musk works, because he's giving people what, I guess, what will make their lives better in the long run, or what will make humanity better in the long run, you know? So I don't think Elon Musk is a good example of capitalist scum.
Yeah, definitely not. If he was, he would have probably retired by now.
He probably just would have he would probably just been part of an oil company.
Yeah, and he would not have built Starship.
Yeah.
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 And then yeah, but one company that goes completely under the radar and deserves way more credit than they're getting is Rocket Lab. You ever heard of them?
I have not, which I guess proves your
Exactly my
point.
point.
Yeah.
Exactly. Rocket Lab is a company in New Zealand, and they have built the Electron rocket. The Electron rocket, it's my favorite rocket. Like, I'm not even joking. I love it more than the Falcon 9. I love the Falcon
Well,
9. I have respect for the Falcon 9. But the Electron rocket, it's like chef's kiss type stuff. It put a lot of first. Rocket Lab built the first electric powered rocket engine.
wow, that is actually really crazy.
Electric cycle, excuse me, because ion engines are a thing, but no one uses them unless it's deep space. But that's besides the point. Um, uh, it works the, you got to turn the turbo pumps, right? And a lot of times they just bleed off fuel, like I mentioned before with the BE3 engine. They bleed off fuel and then they burn that in a pre-burn. That's what turns the turbine, right? It's
Right.
similar to how a car works, in a sort of. But what Rocket Lab does is they have a motor, and that's what turns the turbine. Then
Dude, yeah.
it makes it insanely efficient as well.
Well, I'm a really big supporter of nuclear energy, and I think making everything electric as soon as possible is generally the best possible way to, well, I also like introduce nuclear energy
Mhm.
and honestly save us from climate change and from a lot of other problems that we have right now.
Absolutely right. Yeah. Yeah. I'll get into something that you probably saw in a Mark Rober video because he talked about it, and that's where I got it from. But that's besides the point. Or I'll get into that in a minute. Let me just brag about Rocket Lab for a minute. They're from New Zealand. They built the first carbon composite rocket to get into orbit. That's very insane. And many people told them that was impossible because everyone thought it was. But Rocket Lab, the past few months, have announced very ambitious goals. Um, I'll get into why they're so ambitious, but basically, Rocket Lab's whole thing is they want to launch small satellites. You see, when someone wants to launch something in orbit, you can go to the Falcon 9, you can go to ULA, Russia, NASA, all these big people who launch huge rockets. But if you have a small satellite, you don't want to pay $50 million for a launch, right? Because
Right. You lose
you don't
more
want
than you're getting.
exactly. So, Rocket Lab has the Electron rocket, which is insanely small for an orbital rocket, specifically for them. Now, here's the really cool part about um, about the Electron rocket. It leaves no debris at all, none, no space debris. And there normally isn't. The Falcon 9 leaves no debris, but because they're launching small payloads, they don't always have a propulsion system. It gets it into space and still leaves no debris. To get in space and stay in space, you have to go into orbit, right? You can't just
Right.
go up and down because gravity's a thing, even in space.
Right.
But so when you're in orbit, what the Falcon 9 does, the second stage gets almost into orbit, like almost into orbit, releases the payload. Payload has a small propulsion generator that gets that final touch into orbit. And it can correct itself later on if it needs to change its trajectory, if it's about to hit something, all sorts of stuff. And then the second stage re-enters and burns up, right?
Right.
With Electron rocket, because they're launching small satellites, they can't waste all that weight on a propulsion system because they're small satellites. So what the Rocket Lab did is they made a satellite called Proton, Photon or Proton, I don't know. One of them is also a Russian rocket that blew up and it looked really cool. But that's sorry. What it does is the second stage releases it almost into orbit. It gets that tiny bit into orbit and then can deploy tons of small satellites. So
That's
it's a really amazing approach. It leaves no debris in space at all, and it helps the little guys out. They helped a high school team launch something to Venus.
oh
Yeah, they're they're really on their way.
that is really cool. That is amazing.
Yeah, and because they're launching small rockets, they don't really have a need to recover them because like it costs more to build one than it would to reuse one, right? And plus, like with small rockets, you don't want to spend any time, any weight wasted on propulsion or some form of reentry thing. And so, one thing, Peter Beck, who is the founder and CEO, he said that they're never going to build reusable rockets. A year ago, they announced that they're going to reuse their rockets.
Oh.
Yeah, they found out that it can actually survive reentry. So they strapped a parachute to it, and guess how they're gonna reuse it?
Oh.
They're gonna catch it with a helicopter.
Huh.
That's how small their rockets are.
I like this. I like this new trend of catching rockets midair.
I know. Yeah, I mean they go about it very different ways, and the idea is pretty old. NASA considered catching the enormous Saturn V first stage with a helicopter with a like a rotary blade size of 45 feet. Yeah, they never used it, of course. So now Rocket Lab's idea looks a little bit more plausible. But then they also announced that they're never going to build a big rocket. And the CEO said, I'll eat my hat if we ever build a big rocket. Because, again, they're trying to help the little guy out. What they
Right.
realized is they can help a lot of little guys out at once if they launch a really big rocket. So Peter Beck ate his hat. No joke. You can Google it. He ate his hat. He put it in a blender.
I have to. I'm gonna have to Google this. Hold on.
Yeah, it's in a video called Introducing Neutron, which is their big rocket, and it's reusable.
Wait, what's his name again?
Peter Beck.
Peter Beck eats his hat. All right.
Mm-hmm. It's in a video called Introducing Neutron. It should show up really soon.
Okay, I am going to put this up on the screen. Um, yeah, I'm gonna put this up on the screen. I'm gonna watch it later. But
Of course.
that,
Yeah.
well, props to him for keeping his word, I suppose. I had never heard of this company. That is really cool that this company is helping the little guy. I honestly, I respect it a lot.
100%. Yeah, they definitely need more credit. But they had a major failure like a year or two ago, and SpaceX. This is why I love SpaceX so much as well. Is when they had their failure, SpaceX sent them money and a team to help them run the diagnostic on why it failed. So they're helping the guy who's helping the little guy out. Like
Right.
it's amazing. Like when you give people a set goal, they're gonna work together. So yeah, as long as they aren't selfish, Jeff is, they'll work together and prosper, and that's the beauty of it. Like in the midst of the Cold War, on the verge of nuclear fallout, um, the first international handshake in space happened, and almost instantly the Cold War stopped. Two Russian cosmonauts and two American astronauts docked in space and shook hands, and basically brought peace.
That is really cool. Surprisingly enough, I had not heard about that.
It's absolutely beautiful. Definitely a lot of space stuff I think gets kicked under the rug when it shouldn't.
I think, well, I think just space is such an amazing topic, and it has so much space, ironically, like about different issues. There's this whole thing about, I guess, discovery of planets and terrains and life, but there's this also, I guess, of this idea of coming together, not necessarily like a lot of times when people say like coming together, it's like this idea of like one government and we're all together. But no, I think it's like more of a feeling rather than a form of governance. You know, it's this feeling of like we are humans, we are in this together. And I think I think well the Apollo 11 showed us a glimpse of that. I think Mars will also show us a glimpse of that. And I think that the more and more we explore these things, I personally think that space, getting further and further away from our planet, will ironically bring us closer together as a species.
110%. It makes me really happy to think about, because in the next 3 years we're landing back on the moon. Next 5 we're landing on Mars. Like, now's the time to cash in your bets for space. Like, space, in the words of P-Rick, space is now open for business.
Yes, 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 sir. Um, Wait, I think we're almost running out of time, but I
Right.
did want to ask one more thing. I wanted to ask, so since I don't know much about this, but like you know more about this than I do, Starbase, right?
I was
The
hoping. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. So okay, so I'll explain a little bit about what I know. So
mhm.
to the people listening, Starbase is a planned city that Elon Musk has, which will be a city in Texas, that he is wishing to convert into a more, I guess, space themed and space related city. So you definitely know more about this than me. So okay, I guess lead the way.
Okay, so first off, a lot of it's unknown. One thing Elon Musk really likes to do is just tweet really vague things that make you go, what? And then just not elaborate at all. For example, when they announced that they were going to catch the booster, he just tweeted, oh, yeah, we're not going to land the booster anymore. We're going to catch it with the giant crane. And everyone's just like, what are you on, Elon? Go back to Joe Rogan's podcast. But, and this was one of those tweets he tweeted, I'm going to build a city in Texas called Starbase. And we're just like, what? Like, go back a little bit. Like, I don't have Twitter. I have Instagram, and I follow an account that just reposts whatever he tweets.
Right.
And I saw that. I'm just like, what?
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, okay, okay. Like, if this is either a meme or he's actually doing it, I would not be surprised at whichever direction it took. And turns out he was serious. Like, in the SpaceX live streams, they're now calling it Starbase. I'm pretty sure it's part of the county now. It's not like an official city, but it's part of the county. It's gonna be by Boca Chica. So they're gonna launch rockets from. I'm pretty sure they're gonna add Hyperloop, and basically everything Elon Musk has said in the past 5 years about how he wants to run America or how he wants to run this a popular city, that's what's going to happen. Hyperloop, launch pad to Mars and beyond, and just like it's going to be powered by Starlink, all sorts of stuff. Just like every company Elon Musk has made, that
Right.
in a city. Just
That is going to be amazing to watch. Um, Especially with hopefully Neuralink also gets implemented in there.
hopefully,
I'm dying to
hopefully.
see how that turns out.
Did you see the monkey that was playing Pong?
I did not. Did they put Neuralink in a monkey?
They put Neuralink in a monkey, and
Oh.
at first it was playing with like a joystick or something. They took the joystick away, and it controlled it with its mind. No joke.
Oh,
No joke.
whoa. That is actually amazing.
Yeah. Or
Okay.
they kept the joystick, but they unplugged it, and so he thought he was playing with the joystick, and he was controlling it.
Wait, let's see. Monkey plays Pong Neuralink. Wait, grant me host privileges for a
Yeah,
second. Yeah. Um,
or make host.
all right, I'm gonna share my screen because for the other ones I will put on the screen, but this just seems like a little bit more important. So, all right, because I have not heard about this and I genuinely want to see how Monkey plays Pong.
Monkey.
I think this is an ad.
Boo.
Oh, I don't want an ad. I want to see. I don't want an ad. I want to see how the monkey
Monkey
playing
mind
Pong.
Pong.
All right, let's see. I muted it.
Okay.
Okay, it's a monkey. So okay, so he has the chip inside his head, right?
Right. See, like it's basically told every time he gets a point, like it squirts water or like food or something through that thing that he's sucking on. So he now knows like what he does to get food, right? And so they unplug it. And they're probably like narrating what they're doing, but
All right, wait, let's see if we
eventually,
can get some.
yeah, it coordinates the movements between his hand and arm, and like it detects like what like that means in his brain, I guess.
Oh,
And
okay. So so I'm guessing here.
mhm. Yeah, you pair the Neuralink to your Bluetooth.
And okay, so let's see. Oh Jesus, those are all his neurons. Now
Jeez.
let's see. Okay. Oh, okay. So they just disconnected it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Pretty insane.
that is actually insane.
Mm-hmm. That's. I mean, it shows that you can use Neuralink and not die,
I
which
think
I'm sure is enough to reassure a lot of people, including me.
yes. Yeah.
So that's definitely a step in the right direction.
I am a person that's very sketchy, like sketched out about having chips
This is
inside
the
my
worst way to
skull.
start. The worst way to start a sentence. I'm a little bit sketchy.
I'm a little bit Oh God, no, I'm a little bit sketched out about having a chip implanted into my skull.
As you should be. You should never like take that lightly.
Yes.
But I just picture like vibing to like brain music or something. Like he says that he's gonna have Spotify involved, just like vibing to brain music, and then just all of a sudden,
Imagine.
you get ad-free music for
Oh
5 weeks.
my God. Imagine they just hack into your brain stem and they just start playing Despacito like 24/7. You're like, God damn.
These are weird stuff you're thinking about. Just
Oh God. No, I think, but it's so crazy that like, um, I mean, that this is essentially like people don't understand this. Like what that monkey was doing
never has
is
been done before.
not just that, dude, what the monkey was doing is mind control. Like that thing he was doing, like it's literally mind control. Like
Yeah,
he was moving, like sure, he was moving the joystick out of habit, but like they said, it was disconnected. Like he was moving the cursor with his mind. And that is
yeah, yeah. Like it. He still had to move his hand to do it, right?
yeah.
But yeah, the connection was between his mind.
But I mean think about so there's this YouTuber called oh my J Laser Video.
Yes, I love Jay Laser Video,
Okay.
dude. His videos are sick.
So J Laser Video, for those of you watching, he is amazing. He makes comic book things and movie things.
Everything.
Brings them back to real life. He made a tiny little rebreather that so you can breathe underwater. He made I think
James Bond.
yeah he just made he made
Invisibility cloak.
invisibility cloak. He made a full-on suitcase that turns into an Iron Man suit.
He made so many web shooters. It's amazing.
He made he made a drone that literally carries him, but like he made it at home.
12 motors.
Yeah, exactly, with a lot of LEDs. So this guy, he also made a blaster or something. So this guy basically makes ideas that companies don't want to make, and he makes them at home. And he is, I believe, an engineer.
Disclaimer. He has a shop where he sells t-shirts and some of the stuff that he builds. So if you want to go blow up your friend, check out J Laser Video Shop. I don't know.
He makes holographic watches. So it's like watches. So you have like two watches, and then one throws smoke and the other throws an image. So it has like a little hologram. The dude's crazy. The thing is, in one of his videos, he did, well, Dr. Octopus's arms from Spider-Man, right?
Yeah,
and exactly. That got me thinking because so the technology we saw in Neuralink was literally the monkey controlling it with his mind, right? But he was still moving his arm. And then the technology you see in J Laser Video, I'll see if I can put a little clip on the side out here, was literally J Laser Video moving it with his mind. Like he was not moving any hands at all. He just had to think. He just had to be relaxed, and his mind would send data to the computer because he was wearing a little headset that would make the arms move up or down, or I believe just up and down. You have to remember this guy still makes things in the shed, but The fact that somebody at home with not that much, definitely not a big company budget, can do this, and then we see this in a monkey that has no concept of technology also be able to do this with a little bit of hand movement, and this is the early stages of Neuralink. We are generally getting closer and closer to becoming not just cyborgs, like to the era of transhumanism, and that is amazing to me.
And not to mention, let's take this back to the very first conversation we had. They launched Grasshopper 2 meters high. 4 years later, landed a rocket. Imagine how Neuralink's going to look in 4 years, which I know sounds like a lot, but it's going to fly like that.
It's gonna fly like that, dude.
We'll be in college, like, dude.
We graduate in 2 years, and I believe you said something about 2024 is, I believe, which rock? I think the one in NASA's rocket is going to the moon in 2024.
Yeah, whichever. If they'll probably continue SpaceX, they better. But whichever one they officially re-evaluate, and whichever one they re-give the contract to, will design the lunar lander, and it will return humans to the moon by 2024. I think it'll get delayed because NASA has a history of getting things delayed. But
yeah, a little bit after we graduate, we are going to be already looking at great things, and then a few years after that, we'll probably end up on Mars. This is, I believe, this is the first decade of the second coming of, like I said before, the space race. And I think we may actually, this space race might last longer than the other one, hopefully, and we're gonna do better things.
So. 100%. Well, I have to get up early tomorrow because I'm heading back to Lima. But this was wonderful talking. Sorry we couldn't meet in person, but
yeah, we'll make it up someday. We'll have to have another talk.
100%.
Thank you so much for making time to appear on the podcast. It means a lot. It's always interesting to talk to you on and off camera. So
same to
thank you so much, man.
For the world.